Hi everyone, welcome to The Forge this morning. Hope you are sitting comfortably, hope you are tuned in and ready for church today. Hey, if you are brand new to church, if you've just stumbled across this and you're like, what the heck's going on? Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Finn, I'm on the staff team here at The Forge and I'm delighted that you are here with us. If you're here every single week, you are equally welcome. We are so delighted that you tune in, week out, and that you are part of this community. Absolutely love it. Let's have a look at what's going on in the chat. I'm looking on Facebook at the moment. Liz Bates, of course, is there first. Every single week, she's there first. I mean, you win some medal, some certificate, I don't know what, but you should be anyway. Morning, everyone. Janet says morning. Wade, Curran says morning. Wade's here in the room. He's going to be absolutely melting faces with his guitar later, I'm sure. I have absolutely no doubt about that. Yeah, band are sounding good. We're looking forward to jumping into that a bit later on. Hi. Oh, Helen's here. Hi, Helen. Helen is watching and she's on half-term holidays. So even though she's away on holiday, she is still being part of this church community, which is just one of the many benefits of us doing church online. And Helen, we love that you're here. Who else is away on holiday? Who's got holiday plans this week? I would love to hear about that. Who's doing what? Maybe you're taking the kids out for different day trips. Maybe you've gone away. Maybe you're away already. And like Helen, you're watching us from afar, not from home as you normally would. We want to hear from you. Let us know. We want to know where you're watching from, who you're watching with. We love that you are part of this. Who else has also been up since the crack of dawn this morning? That's my question. We should maybe do a poll. We do it every Christmas morning. We do a whole keep your hand raised for how long you've been up this morning. And it's always the parents with the young kids that have been up since, it's still technically night and they've been up. If you are like that, we want to hear from you. Who thinks they were up the earliest? Nettie says she's been ready since 9:30. Who else has made that mistake? Who else was here an hour early? Anyone? Anyone at all? We want to hear from you. We want to know. Let's see. Who else is here? Sharon's really looking forward to this morning. She's loving it. So, this is good. Riona's here. She says morning. Riona's going to be singing later. I feel like half the comments are people that are in this room with me, but I'm loving that. That's great. Who else is here? Oh no, Liz, I'm so sorry. Liz Bates said that her husband heard the comment that she's always the first one here and now thinks she's the saddest person ever. You're not the saddest person ever. You're an absolute hero, absolute legend. We love that you are here with us this morning. We love that all of you are here tuned in. Thank you for tuning in. Today, we are concluding our Culture Shift series. I have absolutely loved it. It's been a bit different. It's not how we normally do church, but I think it's been really insightful. We've managed to hear from some absolute experts, some people that know their stuff. And it feels like we've got some really rich insight from them. But not only have we been able to speak to an authority in that matter, we've been able to consult the authority, we've been able to see what the Bible has to say about that, and we're not changing that this week. This week we're talking about politics. Wow. Okay, what a subject. Huge subject. Could be divisive, but we're hoping not. So let's start it off by, in the chat, I want to know, did you vote Remain or Leave in the Brexit? No, I don't. I don't want to know that. Do not put that in the chat. If you put it in the chat, you're in big trouble. You will be muted. But yeah, politics has an opportunity to really divide us, doesn't it? But I think actually it's a place where we can come together. I think it's a place where we can share. And actually, as Christians, do we have a role in politics? Do we have an opportunity there to speak something into that industry, into that area? So we're going to be speaking, hearing a bit later from an interview with Tim Farron, who's a politician. And so we're going to be hearing a little bit about his experience with that. And then we're going to be diving into the Bible, seeing what the Bible has to say about politics and how we should treat one another throughout that. Who else is here? Who's tuning in? Chris Ling's here. Love to see you here. That's absolutely great. And she's loved this series. I have too, Chris. Absolutely loved it. It's been great. And Helen has backed me up there, Liz. We love that you're first to party every week. You are so reliable. Jez has said he's got a coat like mine, which was going to the charity shop, but now he's seen me in it, he's going to keep it. Thank you. I'm going to take that as a compliment, not as, Finn, you should be getting rid of that jacket. Thanks for that, mate. That's really helpful. Morning to Ian Chapman. Morning to Alison Colchester. Love that you're here. Love that you guys are tuning in. Hi, Zoe. Like that you're here too. Oh, this is great, guys. We love this online community. We love that you are here. If you're watching this back, actually, though, later in the week, maybe you're not able to be here live, that's absolutely fine. No shame in that whatsoever. But you can always drop a comment here. We are monitoring these comments throughout the week, and we are always live on social media throughout the week. And so it's not just about this hour or so together this morning. Actually, we want to continue the conversation throughout the week. And this is a great place on your phone, on social media to be part of that. So if, during the week you have a thought about something you've heard today, or just something you want to, feedback on, or something you want to dig into more, by all means, do drop us a comment. We love to get those. We'd love to respond to those. And reach out if this is something that impacts you. If you're curious about what this whole church thing is, what this whole faith thing is, why we're doing all this on a Sunday morning, then we'd love to know more from you, and we would love to connect you with some of the answers to those questions. Thank you for being part of this morning. We're excited to wrap up this Culture Shift series. It has been so insightful, so useful. Hi, Emily. Hi for saying, great that you're saying hello to me. Love that you're part of this too. All ages, young and old. Love to see you. And thanks for being part of this morning. Hey, why not take a look at this?
Our mission is to help people find and follow Jesus. And one way you can partner with us in this mission is to give financially towards the work of the Forge Community Church. People have been asking us how they can continue to support us financially, and it's really easy. To make a donation towards our mission, please visit forgechurch.com and click the Give button on the homepage. Now, we don't want something from you, we want something for you. A chance to play an active part in the work of the church. And we're so grateful for each and every one of you who chooses to give in order to support the Forge. Thank you.
So, first one, would you rather be covered in fur or covered in scales?
Basically, it's an opportunity for us to speak to this teaching team.
Thanks for joining me. Tell me, what is lockdown looking like for you?
And I realised then that I loved mercy.
Hi there and welcome to church. It's 10:30, it's Sunday morning, which must mean Forge Church is online, and we are delighted that you are here with us. Thanks for being part of this community. Whether you've stumbled across this and you're very new, or actually you would be here every single week, we are delighted that you are here. Hey, can I ask you first and foremost, straight off the bat, why not give this a like if you're on Facebook or you're on YouTube? Hit that like button, or if you're on Facebook, again, hit that share button. That's not about us, it's not about vanity stats for us, but actually it's an opportunity for us to share this message wider than just this community, but actually it means that people can connect with church this morning, and we would love the idea that your friends could be part of church with you this morning. So why not do that right now? Hey, we are in a series we've called Culture Shift. This is the last week of that series, and today we're looking at politics. So I'm delighted to be able to hand over and we can join an interview with Johnny and Tim Farron. Let's have a look at this.
The fabric of our society has been defined by the leaps in technology and tradition. As we grow smarter, our evolution alters more rapidly. The manifestations of human intellectual achievement stream past with new updates daily. Once we were unaware of the World Wide Web, and now it's a human right. Once we only used the telephone to make a call and people were smart, not objects. Almost any information we could ever need is held in the palm of our hand. But is the human mind built to endure such rapid progress? And which voices do we trust when life is filtered, airbrushed and spun through the PR machine? Time to expand our thinking and examine with an authority on the matter. Time to consult the authority on all matters. Time to bring about a culture shift.
Well, Tim Farron, welcome to the Forge Community Church. We're so glad to have you. I'm aware that given your profile, there probably aren't many occasions where you get to introduce yourself. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what are the things that matter most to you? What are the things that make up Tim Farron?
Wow. All right. Well, so I'm Tim. I am speaking to you from my office in London at the moment, in Westminster. I'm the MP for Westmoreland and Lonsdale, which may or may not mean anything to you. It's basically the southern end of the Lake District and the western end of the Yorkshire Dales and Kendal and Grange over Sands and lots of other nice places. It's a huge area. It's very pretty. And thanks to the West Coast Main Line, I'm only 3 hours away from home. So I am an MP and have been for 15 years. I have served in various roles. I've been a member of the largest Liberal Democrat parliamentary party ever and the smallest parliamentary party for the Liberal Democrats ever. Led the party for 2 years, was president of it for 4 years, in fact, during the Towering Coalition. I'm married to Rosie. We've got 4 kids, all of whom are currently at home, two of whom are grown up. And I'm a Christian. I became a Christian when I was 18, and it hasn't all been plain sailing since by any means, but more of that later, if you like. I think that the reality is if you're living as a Christian and you're living in the world, which we all are, we need to remember that our faith is always countercultural.
Absolutely. Hey, well, let's get into that then, because you mentioned, you talked about your faith and how that is countercultural. People often have the world of having themselves at the center, and you said that actually that isn't the case for you. How does that play as a benefit for your role quite high up in politics, in the political arena, but actually where are some of the tensions with that as well?
So first of all, I think in a world in politics where achievement and ambition is everything, knowing there's something that's much more important. And that means that you should still be passionate and work hard to try and achieve the things you want to achieve. But you have no need to despair if things don't go quite the way you want them to. You also need to hold your plans and your policies humbly, knowing that all you're trying to do is maintain order and seek justice in the short time allotted to you, and that what you're doing is serving God in the place that you have been put, in the time that you've been put there. I think understanding also that I think it probably helps people whose politics is more moderate than those which are more extreme, but certainly understanding that you're not in a position to make the world perfect. You are serving in an imperfect world, and you can improve some people's lives in the process. But also understanding that, again, politics just isn't the solution to everything. It's an important, mission field. It's an important place where you can serve, just like lots of other, careers or vocations or pastimes or whatever can be a place where you serve. But it isn't the be-all and end-all. So understanding that you have no need to panic because God is in control. He is sovereign. It's going to end well. Is something which I hope is a source of serious comfort, whatever walk of life you're in, but it certainly is in this one.
Hey, that's fascinating to hear. And as you said, it's a place of service, and it's a place where there's some real opportunities that come around with that as well. I imagine that in the benches that you sit, there are people who you would differ with quite severely politically, and you sort of mentioned around the moderate and the extreme and the rest of it. And so particularly in a time now where things are so divided around so many different areas, whether it be COVID or Brexit or racial tensions or left or right or whatever that looks like. But actually you probably share a faith with some of those people as well. Is that ever a tension that you have to navigate with? And how do you work that out?
Yes, I mean, so some of my best friends here are people whose politics is really quite different to mine. And, so the benches that we sit on in that, in the kind of third, fourth and fifth party kind of corner of the house, we're alongside the Scottish Nationalists. And there's more than two or three, but I'm aware of and relatively close to two or three Christian MPs who are Scottish Nationalists. Well, I'm a Cumbrian, you can almost see Scotland from my back window, and certainly I can be there in under an hour. And my identity as a northerner, I think I've got a lot in common with Scotland. I'm British, probably before I am English. And the notion that these people want to split the country up, I hate that. I hate it even more than I hate Brexit. And yet they're my brothers and sisters in Christ, and they're nice people as well. So it's hard work. And there are plenty of Conservatives and Labour people who think very different things to me as well. This morning I was in a fellowship call with a number of them. And it's important, when I say it's a struggle, it is a bit. It's not that much of a struggle, though, to know that they are brothers and sisters in Christ, that we have obviously one thing in common which overrides everything else. It's not a phrase that I coined, but it's one that I often stick to, which is the kingdom is more important than your tribe. And all we're trying to do is to serve the Lord in a very temporal sort of way in the business of representation, democracy and government in this short period of time, and knowing that perfection is on its way, but it's not going to be at our hands. One of the most important things Christians in politics can do is just approach everything with a better tone, being loving, being generous. Doesn't mean you can be any less passionate in terms of your views and clear, but how you express them. You don't express them rudely or dismissing the other person, or with lack of kindness or with bitterness. You need to seek to understand where the other side's coming from. But nevertheless be firm about the values that you hold dear to. And so I think it is a challenge, but more than that, like I say, it's an encouragement to live better.
It's amazing to hear how you just said that you've got some of your best friends aren't perhaps sitting on the same bench as you or would have different political opinions to you. And in spite of everything that we might hear, that things are always raging tensions and everything else, that actually there are things that unite more than they divide. And so that's really encouraging to hear. Many of those divisive topics are things that might cause some people just to want to disengage with politics altogether. Why is it specifically important for people of faith to engage in politics, or is it not?
Should Christians care? Yes, they should. I have often cited this, so if you've heard it before, forgive me. Shortly after I become a Christian, I'd been involved in politics for a couple of years as a student, and then I became a Christian at 18. I go to a Christian Union barbecue, I think, or a house party a few months afterwards. And as a lad there who's in my hall of residence called Adrian, nice guy, he was a twin. His twin was there too, but I remember Adrian saying this to me. He just said, "Tim, you're still involved in politics, aren't you?" I said, "As a Christian, isn't that difficult? Isn't it a mucky business?" And it's really struck me that. It stuck with me as a phrase, it's a mucky business. And the answer to that is, the short answer is, yes, it's a mucky business, and so is everything else. Should Christians get involved? Absolutely. It doesn't mean you have to stand for Parliament or join a political party, but you should pay attention, and you should not be afraid to have opinions, or indeed be afraid to change them. And you should vote, and you should engage with your politicians, MPs, councillors and what have you, in a different way to everybody else. But you're not just there to lobby, you're there to love and support and encourage. And how much more it's important if your MP is a Christian, it's important if your MP isn't a Christian. They should think, what's different about these people? So do get involved. Jesus did. And my example really is that I'm reading a book by Tim Keller on this just at the moment, and it's a reminder that Jesus engages as God and he engages as a man with the world in which he was placed. And the account of the raising of Lazarus is massively moving to me, but also instructive of how Jesus related to the world that he'd made. So Lazarus is dead, and he's been dead 4 days, and everybody's weeping, and indeed Jesus is weeping. More than weeping, I'm told that the translation doesn't do it any justice at all. It's not that he's deeply moved. He's bellowing like a wild animal. He's raging against the night. He's raging against death. He's utterly heartbroken. Why? This is the man who made the universe. This is the man who knows that he knows, surely, in 10 minutes he's going to say, "Come out, Lazarus," and he's going to be fine. So what? He doesn't say to Martha and Mary and all the other people weeping, he doesn't say, "Oh, come on, girls, put yourself together. It's going to be fine. Don't you worry." No, he bawls and rages like a wild animal, which I find really moving, as you might tell. And I find it really moving because that's how I feel about death too, and about tragedy and about injustice in this world. And it is a reminder that, yes, God is sovereign. Yes, it's all going to end well. But for those of us who are Christians, just float through life thinking, well, none of this matters. Doesn't matter about what happens to the poor. Doesn't matter what happens to homeless people. Doesn't matter if people, die of cancer. Doesn't matter if these things happen because Jesus is coming back. It blooming does matter. Yes, Jesus is coming back. He is sovereign. But it matters to Jesus enough to break his heart in front of that tomb. So it should matter to you. Even stuff as little as potholes should matter to you. But certainly, waiting lists for cancer treatment should definitely matter to you, and politics should matter to you. Like I say, it doesn't mean you've got to, join a party and stand for Parliament, but you should care and you should vote.
That's really encouraging to hear. And that will inevitably bring tensions and difficulties, particularly if you're someone who has a faith, and if people are listening in who have a faith, potentially with people outside of the church. And so you mentioned a little bit around how we should be involved in politics, but that should look differently. And you've mentioned a few examples there already. But how is it that the church can actively love our neighbours and bring that unity that you described right at the beginning that you have with people with differing political opinions in Parliament? How do we bring some of that into our lives as well with those outside of the church who might think differently?
So I think, some people think praying is a cop-out. It isn't. Very often we're asked to pray about something that's just really a precursor to asking someone to give some money. And actually, praying is really important, not least because if you pray about somebody and something, you're going to presumably educate yourself a bit more about it as you do so. So as you choose to pray about the internal markets bill or whatever it might be, you're going to understand it in the process of doing that. And so I think that's really important. Then you understand why people are coming from and why they're, as I always say to my team, there's two sides to every story. How do we go about doing it? Well, one thing that really troubles me, and there's some wonderful examples of this not being the case, I should say, but you've got people who think it will do social action but not preach the gospel. And other people preach the gospel and think that social action is some kind of second best. It's not. If you're not doing both, there's something wrong. And if you're preaching the gospel and you're not actually physically getting out there and loving your community, there's also something wrong. So we want to be comprehensive, don't we? And that's a rebuke to me as well as it is to anybody else. We want to be comprehensive in our walk with God. It should be faithful. We should be trusting in Jesus as the Saviour and the King and the Judge, and we should also be living out day by day, knowing we can't make things perfect. It's a wonderful liberation knowing that's not on our shoulders, but knowing we're also called to do good and to seek the welfare of the city in which we've been placed.
Tim, you've already mentioned a little bit around the things that unify us and how they're greater than the things that divide us, particularly in your experience with the people that you sit with in Westminster. Within the church, though, how does that translate for us practically? Where have you seen churches unite really well in spite of places where there's some differing opinions?
Well, I think it's interesting, really. I think one of the problems in society today, in the UK, it certainly seems in the States, and probably therefore the rest of the Western world, is, we refer to it gets referred to rather aggressively as the culture war. And I think it's more that we live in these bubbles of people who all think the same as us. And I tell you what, social media doesn't half enhance that. I had a bit of a deal with a Christian friend of mine who's pro-Brexit about 2 years ago, where for a week we would only add followers who disagreed with us. And it's because the legacy of that is that I get much better interaction and some hostile responses as well to this day, that, maybe 1 in 5 of the people that I follow and follow me are not really in my political tribe. But it's really healthy. And I think the point I'm getting at is that one of the things about the church, and I often said, particularly at the height of all the Brexit stuff, is that so I was a Liberal Democrat, and I go to Liberal Democrat meetings, and my wife works for university. So, basically I'm surrounded by whining Ramonas like me. But the 2 places I went where I got a mixture, well, 3 places actually. One is a knock on a load of doors, but my constituency did vote Remain marginally. So I was, I did bump against people who disagree with me, but perhaps not as much as in some other places. But the 2 places I used to go to where, should we say, the balance was different. One was to Blackburn Rovers. And I get banter, but no hostility. Why? Because I was one of them. Because I'm wearing a blue and white top. He might have been on the telly moaning about Brexit the other day, but he's one of us. He's got his blue and white top on. So I was forgiven. And the other place was church. It's not so much that church was, to Blackburn Rovers was probably 70-30 for Leave. Church is probably more like 50-50. More like, the rest of the world, the rest of the country. And the thing is, I've long since stopped being bothered that people talk to me about my job over coffee after church. That's just life. If I didn't want that to happen, I'd go to a church outside the constituency. And so the value is, and that what that helped me to do was to talk about these issues in a non-heated way, and to understand the point of view of others. So the fact that we didn't agree, I don't suppose I changed anybody's mind, and they didn't change mine. But it did help me to put into context the fact that this is all passing. And at some point during the last 3 or 4 years, my church did a series on Revelation. And I really got fascinated by lots of it, but one in particular aspect, which is, of course, Revelation is written for early Christians who are being persecuted. And amongst the imagery that's used regularly through the book of Revelation is that of Babylon and the fall of Babylon. Well, of course, Babylon had already been fallen for 700 years or so. Babylon was in ruins at the time this book was written. So why Babylon? And I guess it's because it's a reminder that Babylon was great and terrifying and finished. Same as the Roman Empire that they were being persecuted by at that point. It was huge, it was terrifying. One day it'll be finished, and indeed 400 years later it was. And so the empires that we either fear or adulate or whatever, whether it's Brexit Britain, whether it's the EU, whether it's an independent Scotland, whatever it is, all these things, I'm sorry, they're temporary. They're temporary. Whether you love them or hate them, they're passing. That's all they are. So don't panic. Do not panic. And without wanting to be flippant, you reach the end of the Revelation. It ends well. God wins. And so you're on the other side. Don't panic is the most important thing to say. And then go back to what I said earlier on when I was referring to the account of Jesus raising Lazarus. Don't panic, but don't cop out either. Get your hands dirty, get your heart broken, make a difference.
That's so helpful to know. Tim, thank you so much for your wisdom, for your insight, for your honesty and vulnerability in talking to us. We're really grateful for it. We're better for it as well. We'll be praying for you as you go forward as well in all of the different daily tasks I'm sure we can't even imagine. But thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a real blessing.
Get your hands dirty, get your heart broken, make a difference. Absolutely love those. I think that's phenomenal. Hey, I hope that was useful. I hope that was a chat that spoke to you. And if you want to know a little bit more about this subject, this is something that actually this is close to your heart. This is something that you feel very strongly about. I've got two suggestions for you. Number one is a book, and it's this book, The Space Between Us, by Sarah Bauer Anderson. So if that's this topic is a conversation which you would like to know more about, that's a great place to start. The second place I would suggest you start is Unpack Lunch, which is something that we run every single week. And on Wednesday lunchtime this week, we'll be running the full interview. That was an abridged version. We run the interview in full. So if you want to know more detail or to see where that interview goes, please do tune into that. It's 1 p.m. It's on Facebook and it's on YouTube to continue that conversation there. I think whether you are interested in politics or not, there's hopefully something for you from that conversation. If you love politics, we've been challenged to love those who think differently to us. But actually, if you don't, if politics is something that just doesn't interest you, we can't allow that to build into an apathy. We can't allow that to make us think that we don't need to make a difference in this world. And so I loved that line of getting your hands dirty, getting your heart broken, and making that difference. One of my favourite quotes was when Tim said this: one of the most important things Christians, and I've put brackets around in politics because I think this applies to Christians universally, can do is approach everything with a better tone. Being loving and being generous, it doesn't mean you have to be any less passionate about your views. But it means you don't express them rudely, dismissively, with a lack of kindness or with bitterness. You seek to see where the other side is coming from. And for me, the key line in this whole quote is this line about being a loving and being a generous community. I would love if that is what the church was known for. And I don't know where you are at right now. Maybe you're someone who's new to church. Maybe you've just stumbled across this because someone's invited you or they've shared it on social media. And for you, maybe that's not what you think of as the church. I don't want to be too critical of us, but actually maybe you would think of the church as something that's outdated and irrelevant. Maybe you'd think of the church as something that is dismissive or judgmental even. So wherever you're at with that, I think actually I would love, and my heart and passion is that actually as a community, we are known for that, being loving and generous. And this idea runs through the Bible. This whole series we've said we want to hear from an authority, and we've heard from Tim, and I think what he's had to say has been excellent. But actually we want to hear from God too on this. And one of the best ways we can do that is to go to the Bible and see what he says about this. There's a letter in the Bible, it's called Hebrews. It's written to the early church when the church was kind of in its infancy. And there's a key line in Hebrews 12 where it says, make every effort to live in peace with everyone, which I think underlines what Tim was saying there, and finding ways to find commonality between those that we might not agree with in person. Too often these days, we live in something of an echo chamber. And we spoke about this a bit last week. And if you haven't checked out the other parts of this series, I would recommend you go back and watch them because the interviews have been really insightful. And I loved when Tim mentioned following people on social media that hold very different viewpoints to him, that he challenged himself to say, do you know what, I'm going to find people that have a completely polar viewpoint on particularly politics to me to ensure that I'm listening to what they have to say. It's really hard to love people if we're not listening to what they have to say. I think that's a key consideration, and I loved hearing him say that. Elsewhere in the Bible, there's another book, and it's written by a guy called James. James was actually Jesus' brother, and he says this: my dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. We have to listen to understand, not just to argue. And this means not only letting the other person speak, but it means that we don't jump to conclusions and we're not listening. While they're talking, we're not just thinking, hey, this is what I'm going to come back with next. This is my counter argument to what they're saying. The goal to listening to others should not be to find points of argument, but to look for things that we have in common. I think when people feel understood and listened to, they also start to feel loved. And as we've said, that's for us as Christians particularly what we want to be known for. There's another part in the Bible in Matthew where Jesus is speaking and he loved to do this. He loved to take an idea, flip it on its head. Jesus was something of a disruptor, something of a rebel. And so he would take an old concept, an old idea, and he would turn it upside down. And so in one part of it, in Matthew, he's talking and he says, you've heard it said to love others. And all of us can agree with that. All of us want to be loved. All of us want to, we feel like we should, treat each other kindly. But he pushes that one bit further. He raises the bar and he says, but I'm telling you, you also need to love your enemy. That you need to go and speak to those people that actually would hold very different viewpoints to you, that, might even kind of hold views that are oppressive to you, and actually have that conversation, begin that dialogue, and love them. Love them wholeheartedly. And that's huge. That's so hard, that's so difficult. And for some of us, that would be a really tricky scenario to get into. But, that's what we're called to, particularly as Christians, we're called to love others. I love that, and I think it's a great bar for us to reach to. But how do we do that? How do we possibly begin to do that? And I think I want to leave you with one challenge, and that challenge is this. How can you close the gap between you and those who do not think like you? I think if we can begin to do that, if we can begin to find practical ways to close that gap, we will begin to be showing love to everyone, to others, even those politically or socially or whatever that we would consider enemies, I suppose. And so Tim gave us a great example of that. And it kind of goes against what we were speaking about last week. If you were here last week, we were saying, actually, sometimes on social media, we need to give ourselves a break, we need to give ourselves a space, and we need to hide, and we need to mute people that are bringing us down. This is the flip of that. Actually, it's like, I'm going to actively have people in my, in a stream of consciousness on my social feed that are going to feed into and make my life richer through showing me a different way, a different thought pattern. And so that's just one way we could do that. And I think, finding ways to close that gap is a key starting point for us loving others well. I want to pray for us because I recognize this is a difficult subject. So let's pray together. God, I want to thank you that we can be together this morning. That whenever we're tuning into this, we can hear from you through that interview. God, would you remind us of your love for us? Would you remind us that we are far from perfect? We fall short of our own expectations of ourselves, let alone your expectations of us. And so, God, we are sorry for when we mess that up. We are sorry for when we fall short. And God, help us to see others through the light of that brokenness, to know that we're all broken and that their brokenness might be different to ours, but that we can love them through that brokenness. God, I want to pray a bold prayer, and that is that you would give us opportunities this week to come up to and to speak with and have conversations with people that hold different viewpoints to us. And that through that conversation, it wouldn't become an argument, that we wouldn't be dismissive, that we wouldn't build walls, but instead that we would extend love to them, that we would listen to them, that we would show them that as, particularly as followers of you, that we want to hear them. We're asking this all in Jesus' name. Amen. Hey, throughout the lockdown, throughout this whole pandemic, we've wanted to hear from our community, and we've wanted to reach out and speak to people. And during this series, we've tried to tailor that to the specific topic that we're talking about. And so I am delighted that we got an opportunity this week to interview Bridget. Take a look at this.
So I'm Bridget. This year only, actually starting in April, I'm the High Sheriff of Suffolk, which is quite a different role. But the role really is largely supporting those people who work in communities and voluntary organisations. In this year, one of the things that really struck me was when Steve gave the talk about the need to be anti-racist, not just saying I'm not racist. It wasn't enough, you had to be anti-racism. I thought, do you know what, I can do this in Suffolk. And I thought, what am I good at? Well, I love talking and I love chatting to people and I love listening to people's stories. So I decided to do a walk along the coast of Suffolk with people from different ethnic groups and to really listen to what their lives are like living in Suffolk. And it was fascinating. And I learned how life works and how difficult it can be. And it made me really understand what was going on. And what was so interesting is they said, so many people don't listen to us. All they do is tell us what we should do and how we should be. But by listening, you move towards a person and you hear what life's like. They said they really enjoyed it because they said, I really and properly heard them. And I gave them the time to listen well. And it's so important that we do that in life, really hear people's stories and go towards them rather than tell them what they need to be like. And from that, I've got actions, I've got things I will do to help those people in their lives, to make their lives better and easier so they can live a great life in our wonderful county of Suffolk. We always find it difficult to think, what can I say? And actually, when people are going through difficult times, they want someone who can talk to them and who will sit with them and just listen and be, and has time to do that. So it's one of the things I think it's about learning what you're good at and then how you can help.
Morning everyone, thanks for joining us. Let's sing together.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much to the team. Special thanks to Riona, leading for the first time on her birthday, no less. Amazing. So good to see and so great to sing together. I'm sure you enjoyed that at home too. Hey, we hope today has been useful. We hope you've learned something. Maybe you've heard something through those lyrics. Maybe you see that interview that we had that's maybe resonated with you. We'd love to continue that conversation. Please do reach out. That's really simple. All you need to do is drop a prayer hands emoji in the chat or just DM us on any of our platforms. Send us a private message, direct message, and we would love to chat to you further. This is the last in our series in Culture Shift, and I've seen the comments. You guys have been loving it. You guys have been really enjoying this series. I think someone said in there it's the best series they've been part of as they've been part of the Forge, so love that. So good to see. Love that you've been part of it, but it is all good things come to an end, guys. All good things come to an end, and it is coming to an end. This is our last week of Culture Shift. So we will see you throughout the week. We're on social media. Please do drop us a comment, get in touch, send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. But if not, we'll see you next week when we are starting a brand new series, and it's called Guardrails.